Hello everyone and welcome back to a new round here of the new Byte Roundtable. Today as a guest I also have Dan again from the new Byte. How are you doing, Dan?
Hello, I am good. I am having audio issues, but I'm good.
Yeah, we can hear that sadly a little bit. I'm trying to edit it out a little bit in post. I don't know how successful I'll be in the end, but yeah, please, dear viewers, be aware that we're also aware of his audio things right now, and yeah, we're just gonna make do because we want to talk about the things and we don't want to be, holding up any longer as long as the topics are fresh. And today's topic at hand is Watch Dogs 3, which is reportedly playing in London. What do you think about that, Dan?
That's gonna be real cool. I especially from going with Watch Dogs 1, it was very focused on hacking as a primary thing, with gunplay as more of a secondary thing. It wasn't as big. It had loads of varieties of weapons. You got into situations where you had different weapons, but with something like Watch Dogs 2, it was kind of, they were equal. It was kind of, guns were as important as your hacking skills. You wanted to upgrade those and everything and keep those at a good level. Whereas I think if you put it into a UK setting where guns are not as readily available and things like that, then it's going to be more focused on the hacking aspect. So we're going to get either cooler ways to hack or more interesting ways to hack, and maybe some like hacking mini games and stuff that will keep that will hopefully keep it fresh and not too kind of repetitive and boring. But I definitely think it's going to focus more on the technical and hacking aspect rather than the hacking with gunplay shooter elements.
Yeah. The problem that I always had with Watch Dogs 3 was that, or Watch Dogs in general, I'm sorry, is that it felt very much home to what GTA did. Just like additional, you had a little bit of hacking and puzzle mechanics. But in the end, you're running around, you're like one person shooting lots of guys in different locations on a very open map. And that's why I was thinking Watch Dogs 1 definitely was going that direction. Watch Dogs 2 was at least a little bit quirky, was more playing with its themes, so that made it feel a bit different, but the gameplay was, in the end, very much still that. You were stealing cars, you were racing around with them, you were shooting lots of guys. And what I really hope is that they also go more into the aspect of, stealth, like sneaking around and trying to not be caught. And so that they appreciate that fact, actually, that you are just a hacker and you're not a vigilante that's basically just shooting around all day. And as you said before, like in London or generally in the UK, guns are not as prevalent as they are, for example, in the US, which the former 2 games have been set in. And I really like to think this could be very interesting if they do it right. If they don't like go in and say, oh, this is London, but in the end, it's basically still like America.
Yeah, well, one of the biggest things about London, which was in kind of like they touched on it very lightly with the original Watch Dogs. In the original Watch Dogs, right up until the point where they actually released the game, they had a cool online web thing. I can't remember what it was called, but essentially you could pick a city and then you could float around a Google Maps style map that was very in the Watch Dogs style and everything, and you could click and you could see ATMs, cameras, all the other kind of stuff that you would be able to do in the game, essentially. But this was all connected to like real things. You could actually go, where is the nearest ATM? Pull this up on your phone, click on it, and you could actually go do it. I did it on a small trip to London myself, and it was actually quite fun because it's like, hey, I'm doing something which I'd be able to do inside of this cool upcoming game.
Yeah.
So that, on top of the fact that London has one of the highest CCTV, or if not the highest, CCTV to area ratios, it's going to be incredible because you can you're going to be able to follow people using the CCTV cameras and everything, like you did in the first game, but maybe on a greater scale. Maybe you'll be able to travel further or get different angles on things. Maybe it'll focus more on trying to collect evidence against or whoever you go up against, using the system that's put in place. I would be very interested to see if kind of CTOS has managed to somehow branch its way across the pond by rebranding itself or something in the whole greater scheme of the lore and all that. But I definitely think that Ubisoft have a lot to play with the Watch Dogs series, and I'd like to see more of a story that reflected the first game rather than the second one, because the second one, the story was a bit kind of, it wasn't as engaging as the first one. The first one felt very. If I had to compare it, I would say the first one felt very reminiscent of the GTA 5 storyline and also the Max Payne. It had those types of elements where it was kind of like loss was driving this character, and it had played a big. It played a real big part in the overall story, which gave which I can't remember what the name of the main character is now.
It's forgettable.
Yeah,
I only know the second one is Marcus, because I was thinking there's not that many Marcuses out there in the gaming world.
Yeah, I think the first one was Adrian, if I remember correctly, or Aiden.
Could be.
Aiden begins with an A. I don't know. I might look it up real quick. Anyway, point is, with that, his character development felt like I was engaged with the story. I wanted to see where it went, and he was driven by a goal to kind of look after his family, and you could get drawn into that really easily. But with Marcus, it was just kind of like he's part of a thing with a bunch of people who print out stuff and hack and go against the system, which is kind of cool, but it also is kind of just, in my opinion, it was a bit too generic and not engaging enough.
Yeah, maybe that could be.
My opinion.
Yeah, in my opinion, because I think the Watch Dogs 2 storyline is much better than the first one, because the first one we played so often, I was just really tired about it. And I could agree on that, maybe a little bit like too superficial, like too generic. But in the end, it definitely felt like more appropriate to what Watch Dogs wanted to be. It's about the hacking culture aspect. You're not really hacking alone ever, really. It's not like a culture. It's like aspects of a group. Just like we saw with Mr. Robot in the series, if you have seen it, you know what I mean, because in that there's also very large attacks being planned, but not only by one single person who did it all, who's basically like a superhero in that aspect. Now, that was done by a collective, and that was also followed in Watch Dogs 2, which I hope is also getting featured in the third one with DeadSec or the European version. Maybe there's like a counter thing, or like a twin version of that here in Europe. And that could be very interesting, at least. And as I said before, yeah, the CCTV range is very high in the UK. And I hope, again, that we're going to see much more different things in the gameplay itself, that it's actually going to separate itself. Of course, it shouldn't be like, the next Assassin's Creed, but overall, it's basically... It could also very much benefit from that, at least if it does that well, with the stealth aspect of it.
Well, it is Aiden Pierce. I did look it up.
Oh, yeah.
I was right. I personally, I really liked Aiden Pierce as a character. But my feelings aside, with how Watch Dogs could go, there are a couple of ways which I'd like to see Watch Dogs go. One way is I'd like a bit more kind of interactivity with kind of the Watch Dogs universe and the Assassin's Creed universe, because in Watch Dogs 1 and partially in 2 and in some Easter eggs, Abstergo Industries and the Assassin's Order is actually prevalent in that. They are connected. They're in a shared universe. So I'd like to see maybe something like that happen. Maybe a bit more Abstergo presence crop up. That would be kind of cool.
Like a Ubisoft universe thing.
Yeah, like an expanded universe. That would be kind of cool to see and interesting, and maybe even visit like a London-based office of Abstergo, or just have their building in the background, because it's something that doesn't really tie into the story, but it's still kind of like cool and in an extended universe type of way.
Could be.
Gives it a bit more weight and gravitas.
Yeah, for example, if they would just say, okay, there is this thing, it belongs to what Ubisoft has basically built, but because Assassin's Creed is always historical, back in past sets, and Watch Dogs is always the modern, even halfway futuristic parts, they could very well, harmonize each other. And the people that like the current storyline more, which are not as much interested in the historic parts of this world, could really benefit from that. Indeed.
Definitely. One aspect which I would like to see as a possible way they could go with Watch Dogs 3 would be if they took the hacking aspect from a white hat hacker, so somebody who works for the UK government or some kind of organization, using it to fight crime rather than being a vigilante taking out crime. So that would be kind of cool, and a way to introduce kind of like either small guns or tasers to just kind of like it's you're part of the law and you're looking after the general populace and you're using technology in a slightly hackerish but ultimately lawful way, which would be very cool and very interesting in my opinion.
Yeah, like I'm looking back at Mr. Robot. It should not be Mr. Robot the game, but that show really showed us how a security officer really takes in his job, and in his private time he's doing these other things. He's hacking people that he knows, his therapist, his friends, friends of friends, and everyone, and just trying to deal with the fact what they are doing and stuff like that. Could be interesting that we maybe start out like that for the first 1 or 2 hours, that we don't fully engage with the DedSec collective, for example, and just very later on join the bigger ranks, so that we actually get to know the character first, what he's like, or she, I don't know, and what it would be then in the end, that it connects each other later on.
Yeah, that would definitely, I think that would be a cool idea as well. Partial side note and possibly spoilery, with Mr. Robot, I watched a little bit of it. I will admit I haven't watched it fully. I think I watched like 1 or 2 seasons. But
I think there's only 3 anyway.
Okay, didn't it end up being like, instead of it was just him on his own, and all the other kind of like hackers that he was with were just part of his psyche?
Not fully. So the Mr. Robot character was his father. His father, though, is long dead, and he just imagined it. And he suffered actually loss of memories. And the other hackers that he worked with were actually his people. And he was both, as a schizophrenic person, I think it's the right term, he was both Mr. Robot and the guy himself that he plays in that series. So, yeah, it was actually both.
Because I remember like reading a thing online where it was saying that the whole TV show or the whole Netflix show was just kind of, it was a Fight Club style thing where it was just all in his head. Which kind of like, it didn't put me off, but it was just kind of less kind of engaging then. It was like, oh, so he's basically just made up a load of these people.
You should really watch the 3rd season, how it all concludes in a very high peak. It's really much worth the investment. All right, but we're talking a long time, so let's just do one last point. What do you think, when will they reveal it and when will the game come out? Because I would certainly think maybe that Assassin's Creed takes another break again to have a 2-year cycle for the next iteration of the next 2 games come out. So I'd say they announce it this year and then maybe come out until March 2020.
Yeah, I think if there's a couple of reasons behind my thinking. Ubisoft could do something very cool where they leapfrog it. So they have Assassin's Creed, and every other year they either do Watch Dogs or they do some other type of game. They bring in something else to keep the audience fresh, but allow the Assassin's Creed universe to just kind of develop a bit more. But I think in terms of developers actually telling people about their games and engaging more people about what's next, I think there's a definite shift in the industry, because I remember reading something where a publisher or a developer was saying that when people are looking at to release games and release hype about games, they don't want to tell them like right at the beginning and then leave them on for 2 or 3 years. They want to tell them and then it'd be like, oh, in 6 months you can have this in your house. Generate some real big hype right before the launch, have it launch, and then move on with either continuous updates or with the next project. So I think if they are going to announce it, it's either going to be in the near future, or it's either they're not going to announce it and then wait until they're ready to talk about it. So I'm hoping that it will be at this year's E3, or they'll just mention something about it. Even a teaser, like a little kind of like the lights go out and then the DedSec logo turns up and then just nothing else happens. I'd be more than happy to just be like, okay, you're committed to this. This is cool. But I would definitely like to. I'd hope that they decide to go, okay, we're going to release this and then we're going to announce this and then release it in a few months or a year. Because if they announce it now and then they say, oh, in 2 years' time it's going to come out, that will be just kind of, it's going to drop off and lose hype.
It's not really what Ubisoft does.
Lose it. Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing that they had was this Skull and Bones thing, which they sort of recreated in a new direction as they saw Sea of Thieves. That's the only game where I think in recent times where they were like, okay, we announced it, but now we re-announce it because it's new things coming around. Most other games are just like, this is coming this year or early next year, and I think that's more respectful because at this point, hopefully the game are in the states where they're like close to be done, and it's very likely that they will deliver what they promise on in these events. Not like they're promising something years ahead of their schedule, and then in the end it's completely different. Which, as we know, in more recent times, games that start out now or have been in 3 years of development will definitely still look different if you give it 1 more year of development time.
Yep.
All right. So let's cap it off here. I have one more thought, which I will keep back for myself. We're going to talk about that in another video. But that are our thoughts and wishes for Watch Dogs 3. And hope you liked it. Give us a like if you want, and subscribe to not miss any videos. Or follow us, of course, also on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And if you want to, you can join our Discord for free, of course, which you can find under thenewbyte.com/Discord. Where can people find you, Dan?
They can find me using DJH331 anywhere, anytime, any place.
And my name is House HAU5 Test everywhere, definitely everywhere. And that's it for the video. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.